Egypt is a country in northern Africa on the Mediterranean, having land borders with Israel and Palestine to the north, Sudan to the south, and Libya to the west. The history of Egypt spans several thousand years, with the first civilizations popping up around the Nile Delta in the 6th millennium BCE. As such, some historians consider Egypt to be the oldest nation on Earth. However, that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. Today I'm going to be talking about a little village in Buckinghamshire which happens to have the same name. Good morning, class. Today I'm going to be talking about the hamlet of Egypt in Buckinghamshire, situated to the east of Burnham Beeches, which is a 4 square kilometre approximately site of specific scientific interest in Buckinghamshire, owned by the Corporation of London. Egypt is in a very, very rural area. It's about 6 kilometres away from Slough and about 35 kilometres from the centre of London. There's a lot of posh looking houses, as is standard for this part of the UK, lots of greenery and, well, not much else. You can see me here standing next to one of the signs to prove that yes, this is in fact what this place is called. These signs always get passers-by scratching their heads in confusion. So when was Egypt, Buckinghamshire established? Initially my research into this topic proved to be kind of fruitless. All the sources that came up from around the 19th century that mentioned Egypt mentioned the country, as opposed to the village in Buckinghamshire. The earliest written source that I could find from a Google search was a trade directory from 1939. However, I had a little bit more luck when it came to looking at OS maps. Thanks to the website of the National Library of Scotland, I was able to access some OS maps from the late 19th century. The earliest map they had of the surrounding area, i.e. southern Buckinghamshire, was a 70 by 100 centimetre map published in 1883, but surveyed in 1875. This map shows a tiny settlement east of Burnham Beeches called Egypt. This led me to believe at this point in time that the area had to have been settled sometime before the 1870s. However, I wanted a more accurate answer. So I contacted the County Archives for Buckinghamshire, which is based in Aylesbury, by email. They actually covered Egypt as part of their Great Bucks tour, in which they talked about various locations, towns, hamlets from around the county. They posted this on Facebook, and I'll put a link to that in the description. Also in the email, the Bucks County Archive mentioned the Victoria County History. Now, the Victoria County History was a series of volumes researching the history of the counties in England, including Buckinghamshire, Berkshire, all the counties really. It started in 1899. On one of their volumes on Buckinghamshire, they do have Egypt listed, originally as starting as 3 cottages from around the 17th century. But the question you really want answering is, why is this place called Egypt? The story goes that this place gets its name because the area was frequently settled by Roma travellers. Now, what did the Roma have anything to do with Egypt? It's true that the Roma people weren't originally from Egypt, they were from what is now northern India. They started migrating across Europe at the end of the 9th century and reached England by 1515. You might notice that I'm referring to travellers as Roma and not gypsies. That's because the Roma themselves prefer this term over gypsy, which is considered derogatory and a slur now by the Roma community worldwide. However, that word is sort of where we get our connection to Egypt. So, gypsy comes from the Middle English word Gyptian, which is just a shortening of Egyptian. It was believed that the Roma were originally from Egypt by a lot of white Europeans because they had darker skin, even though, as I said, that wasn't the case. So the answer to the question, why is this hamlet called Egypt, is because it lies in the same place that was frequented by Roma travellers, who were referred to as Egyptian, with some 16th century sources referring to the Roma as the Dukes of Little Egypt. Before I end, I just want to mention a few other villages in Britain that are named after foreign places. In Tyne and Wear there is both a Philadelphia and a New York. Now these are named after the cities in America. They get their name to commemorate the capture of those cities by the British military during the American Revolutionary War. In East Ayrshire in Scotland, there's a village called Moscow. It's believed that the original settlement's name might have been closer to Moss Hall, which just over time got corrupted and written as Moscow. However, there are some sources that indicate that after Napoleon retreated from Moscow, the city in Russia, in 1812, that the settlement was permanently changed its name and pronunciation to Moscow. Funnily enough, the village of Moscow lies on the same line of latitude as the city of Moscow, which is 55 degrees north. So what we can say is the hamlet of Egypt in Buckingham first settled as it is now in the 17th century, starting as 3 cottages. It is possible the area was given the name of Egypt earlier, but we can't really say for certain as to when that is. It would have had to have been between the arrival of the Roma in England in 1515 and when Victoria County history references Egypt as being first settled as those 3 cottages in the 17th century. Whatever the case, Egypt in Buckinghamshire is still inhabited to this day, baffling passers-by with its strange name. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on the little hamlet in England named after a country in North Africa. Special thanks to Lisa Edwards of the Buckinghamshire Archives for answering my questions. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have anything to add. Hopefully the first video on my series I'm planning about the history of Zimbabwe will be out soon, so stay tuned for that. Goodbye. 1, 2, 3. Goodness sake. Hopefully the light stays there this time.